Hi there, grade 7s. My name is Mrs. Niverson and I'm going to be giving you a lesson today on English grammar. So make sure you've got a pen and a notebook or paper handy, both to take notes and also to do some exercises as we work our way through today's lesson. A quick reminder of our email address. It's grade7@worksheetcloud.com if you would like to talk to your teachers or ask any questions on the content that you have been taught. Okay, so what is going to be the focus of our English grammar lesson today? Well, it is going to be on active and passive voice. And it is absolutely fine if you've heard of this before and this is a revision lesson, or if it is a new concept to you, even better, get ready to learn something new today. Now, before we can start exploring what active and passive voice means, we first have to remind ourselves of what has to be in a sentence in order for it to be classified as a sentence. So in English language, we say that a sentence needs to have a subject, a verb, and an object. So here I've got a very simple sentence for you. The mice run from the cat. And see if you can remind yourself what parts of those sentences are classified as the subject, what's the verb, and what's the object. So you can pause your video now if you'd like to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to show you now. Okay, so if I click, there we go, and I've color-coded them for you. The subject of this sentence is the mice. The verb, run, and the object, the cat. Okay, so what is a subject, what is a verb, and what is an object? What's a nice, easy way of remembering those things? Well, the subject in a sentence is the thing that performs the action. So in this case, it is the mice that are performing the running. Okay, so they are the subject. The verb is the action. We know that a verb is an action word, a doing word. So here, the word run is the verb. And the object, in this case, the cat, is receiving the action of the verb. So the mice run from the cat. So that's a nice, easy way to remember in an English sentence. What is the subject? It's the thing performing the verb. You obviously know the verb is an action word, and the object is the thing receiving the action from the verb. So, in order to be able to recognize and use active and passive voice correctly, we need to always be able to identify those three things in every English sentence. You should be able to always look at a sentence and be able to tell me what is the subject, what is the verb, and what is the object. So let's test if you can do that now. So I'm going to give you 3 sentences now on your screen, and I'd like you to see if you can identify correctly the subject, the verb, and the object in each. So here they are. I have Isaac threw a ball at the window. The magician pulled a rabbit from the hat. Helen practiced her recorder every day. So take a couple of seconds now, maybe pause the video and see if you can correctly identify the subject, verb, and object in each of those sentences. Right, let's see how well you did. Okay, so the first sentence. Isaac threw a ball at the window. The subject is Isaac. Isaac is the one performing the throwing. He is throwing, he is performing the verb. The threw is obviously the past tense of throw. Here is the action, and the object that's having the action performed to it is the ball. Okay, well done if you got that correct. All right, let's have a look at the next one. The magician pulled a rabbit from the hat. The magician is the subject because he or she is performing the verb, which is pulled, and the rabbit is the one that's being pulled. So therefore the object. And lastly, Helen practiced her recorder every day. Helen is the subject because she is practicing, which is the verb practiced, her recorder. The recorder is the object of the sentence. So hopefully that helps you recap and remember subject, verb, object. And now we're going to see how that applies to active and passive voice. So what does it mean? What is active voice and what is passive voice? So let's start with active voice. An active sentence, the subject performs the action to the object. Okay, so those 3 sentences we just looked at, those were all in active voice. The active voice is the most commonly used and is usually the most effective way of communicating because it's clear and direct. So if a teacher is giving you instructions, the teacher will say something very clearly. She may say to you, John, do your homework. I'm giving you the subject is John, the verb to do or doing, and the homework is what he must do, is the object. So here's an example. The dog ate my homework, okay? So the subject here is the dog, the verb is ate, and obviously the object is homework. So that's active voice. That's the one that we are most commonly use in most formal ways of writing in English. So what's passive voice? Passive sentences usually have the object first, and it makes it so that the object is turned into the subject through use of a passive form of the verb. So we often use the word, and a good way of spotting passive voice is to look for this word, by. Okay, so you use passive voice if you want to minimize the importance of the subject. Passive voice is used to stress the action, not the actor. Okay, so it's used to stress the verb and the object and minimize the subject. So for example, that same sentence, my homework was eaten by the dog. Now this time, because it's passive voice, I've put the object first, my homework. The verb is there and it's still being performed by the dog, but I've put the word by and I've chucked the dog at the end. So if you ever wanted to really use an excuse and you want to minimize your importance in the sentence, okay, sorry miss, I didn't do my homework. That means you put yourself first. Sorry miss, my homework wasn't done by me, puts you last. Okay, it's not very correct use of the English language, but it's passive voice in opposed to active voice. So here I have 6 sentences for you, 3 of which we've all just done, and 3 are new ones, and see if you can make a decision as to whether they belong in the active voice or the passive voice column. So if it's active voice, remember, the subject comes first, the subject is performing the verb on to the object. If it's passive voice, the object becomes the first thing. We perform the verb is performed still by the subject, but the subject comes last, and we usually put the word by in it. So have a little look at those sentences. I'll quickly read them to you. The plane is boarded by the family. The magician pulled a rabbit from the hat. Isaac threw a ball at the window. Helen practiced her recorder every day. The flowers were grown by my nan. The damage was caused by the storm. So see where you think they should go. Okay, have you done it? Let's have a little look at the answers together. The magician pulled a rabbit from the hat. Active. Isaac threw a ball at the window. Active. Helen practiced her recorder every day. Active. Remember, the magician, Isaac and Helen are the subjects. They are the first thing to appear in the sentence. The verb pulled, through and practiced are the second thing, the middle thing, and we finish with the object. In this case, the rabbit, the ball, and her recorder. So the other 3 sentences are all passive voice. The plane is boarded by the family. So here, the plane is the object because boarded is the verb, but the family, remember, the subject must perform the verb. So the family perform the boarding of the plane. Okay, so we've just flipped the order around. So now we have object, verb, subject. The damage was caused by the storm. The damage is the object. Yeah? Was caused is your verb. The storm is your subject. The flowers were grown by my nan. The flowers is your object. Grown is your verbs. And my nan is your subject. Sorry, I've just realised I'm British, so we call our grandmas nan. So if you're wondering what that means, it's your grandmother or your Oma, I think is a South African word. There you go. Okay, let's have a look at our next slide. So here I'm going to put a challenge to you. I have got some tiles, and if I click on them, they'll flip and it will reveal a picture. And I want you to see if you can write an active sentence about that picture. Now, obviously, I won't be able to check your sentences, but we'll do a couple together as well. Okay, so I'm going to flip 3 tiles. Let's do 3 together, and then I'll do 3 for you. All right, let's start with this one. So lawnmower. So let's make sure it is in active voice. Give you a second, see if you can think of one, and then I'll give you my version as well. Okay, here's mine. The lawnmower mowed the grass. Okay, there's a subject is the lawnmower. It's become first because the lawnmower is performing the verb, which is mowed the grass. Okay, here's another one. Right, let me think, what could I have? The lion roared at the passing 4x4. I had to think off the top of my head there. So the lion is the subject performing the roar, which is the verb, at the 4x4, which is the object. So I have made it sure it is active voice. Okay, and last one for me to do. Aha! Timothy wrote his story. Timothy, subject, is performing the verb to write, or in this case past tense wrote. His story is the object. Okay, so there's 3 examples from me. Now it's your turn. So I'm not going to obviously be able to check these, but you'll know if you've done them right, I'm sure. Let me click on 3 pictures at random. Aha, someone eating their broccoli. Oh, I think that's Roger Federer playing tennis. And let's go for this one. Oh, fun thing to do in the summer. Okay, so give those 3 a go on your own. Right, now let's have a little look at changing sentences. Now, it is possible and relatively easy to change a sentence from active to passive voice or vice versa, and it is something that is often asked of you in English. In English lessons or exams, teachers will often say to you, this is written in passive voice, please change it to active voice or vice versa. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice doing that. But there is one very key thing that we have to remember, which is it is important that you do not change the tense of a sentence, when changing whether it is in active or passive voice. Okay, so let me give you an example. So here, on the plain, the lioness chased an antelope. First of all, have a little look at that sentence and see if you can identify if it is in active or a passive voice. Okay, it is an active voice sentence because I have the lioness, which is the subject, coming before the object, which is the antelope. So the lioness performs the chase, the lioness performs the verb, and the antelope is the one being chased, okay? So it's the object. So this is active voice, and I want to change it to passive voice, but I must remember that this sentence is written in past tense. So I have to keep my passive voice sentence in past tense too. So let's see how that might look. On the plain, an antelope was chased by the lioness. Okay, I haven't changed chased to chasing. Okay, it is still in the past tense. Okay, so let's give you another one. Let's have a look at another example. Harry ate sandwiches for lunch. It's an active voice sentence again. Harry is my subject. Ate is the verb. Sandwiches is the object. If I change it to passive voice, sandwiches, so the object comes first, were eaten by Harry for lunch. Okay, so were eaten, I've kept it in the past tense. The carrots were always eaten by my brother. Now this time I have a passive voice sentence. Remember, a nice way of checking quickly if it's passive voice, can you see the word by there? It's a good indicator that you've got a passive voice sentence. So I have the object first, which is the carrots. Eaten is the verb. And the subject, the person doing the eating, is the brother. Okay, so now let's look at how we change it. But remember, we have to keep the tense the same. My brother always eats the carrots. Now, passive voice sentences can get a little tricky. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of those now. So here are some examples of passive sentences. The jewelry was stolen. The bicycle was ridden. The present was opened. They are all passive voice, but there's something missing that makes them a little tricky sometimes to identify. Have a little look and see if you can figure out what it is. Okay, maybe if I highlight for you that, it will also help you. Figured it out yet? Okay, let's have a little look. Why are we call them tricky? Well, because they have a verb and an object. So the present is the object and the verb is opened, but there's no prepositional. So there's none of that word by. And that's important because that then removes the subject from the sentence. So we know, it still makes sense, doesn't it? The present was opened, but I don't know who was doing the opening. Okay, so it's still passive voice, but without by, without the prepositional, I don't know the subject. So the present was opened by Sarah. I can get rid of by Sarah and it still be a passive sentence and it still makes sense. It's just removing that last who or what is performing the verb. Okay, so now we've had a little look at more passive sentences. Let's play that little game again. This time I'm only going to give myself 2. I'm going to choose 2 tiles and I'm going to give you my passive sentences for those 2 tiles, those 2 images, and then I'm going to give you 3 for your own to do in your books. All right, which one shall I go? Let's go for the bottom one now. Okay. Oh, okay, so that is a broken window. So let's have the window was broken by the ball. Okay, it's passive sentence. I have the window as the object, broken as the verb, and the ball is the subject. How about up here now? Let me do this one. Aha! Oh, it's half a pizza. Oh, half the pizza was eaten by my greedy husband. Okay, so passive voice, and remember that prepositional, the word by, helps me to know that it's passive voice. But if I took it away and I just had half the pizza was eaten, it's still passive voice and it still makes sense. So here's 3 for you to try. Let's go for this corner. Oh, what passive sentence could you write about a spider web? Let's go for this corner. Oh, it's a cow being milked. What can you write as a passive sentence there? And let's go for one more in the center this time. Okay, someone washing their hands. Okay, so give those a go in your own time in your own books. And it's a nice little game you can do as well around your house. You can look at images and see if you can write an active sentence about that image and a passive sentence about that image. Okay, so let's try that ourselves actually. So I'm going to give you 2 images and I'd like you to see if you can write descriptions of those photographs in active voice. So here's the first one and here's the second one. Maybe pause your video if you'd like to take some time. Otherwise, I'm going to now go through and show you my active sentences. I'm sure you can come up with much better ones, but my active sentence for this one was, the children enjoyed climbing during their school camp. And my active sentence for this one, they spent the day kayaking down the river. Now, this is actually a very important point to note, is that your subject doesn't always have a name. So in this case, the subject of the sentence is they. It's a group of children, they. Okay, so how about let's do the same, but now with passive voice. Can you write descriptions of these photographs in passive voice? Okay, have a little look and see what you can come up with. So here are my sentences. I'm sure you've come up with much better ones, but I've got, the tasty cupcakes were baked by my aunt for my birthday. The water balloons were blown up by my brother for the water fight. Remember, the tasty cupcakes were baked by my aunt. So remember, there's your subject, the person who did the baking, and there's my objects. And the same here, the water balloons were blown up by my brother. So let's see, I've got some quick quiz questions now for you to see how much you've retained from today's lesson. So which sentence of the ones I'm going to list for you below is written in the passive voice? Kira played for the netball team. The tasty meal was cooked by my mum. My little brother always wakes up early. I am lucky to be going on holiday to France with my best friend's family. Well done if you said the tasty meal was cooked by my mum. So remember that prepositional there, the by, is a dead giveaway, but the mum did the cooking of the meal. So we've flipped it around and we've got the object first. Okay, so for this next quick activity, I want you to see if you can write out and underline the objects in the following active sentences. So here they are. I climbed the tallest tree in the park yesterday. The class boarded the coach noisily to go on their trip to London. We eat our lunch on the field in summer. So what are the objects? Underline them, write out the sentences and underline them. Okay, the object in the first sentence is the tree because it is what is being climbed. The coach is the object in the second sentence because the class with the subject and they boarded the coach. And lunch is the object in the last sentence. We would be the subject, eat is the verb, and the lunch is having that verb performed to it. Remember, when you're looking for the object in an active sentence, especially it's easy to spot, you're looking for the thing that is having the verb done to it. Okay, my third quick quiz activity is to rewrite these sentences in the passive voice. So they are in the active voice, and I want you to give them to me in the passive voice. The first one is Gina visited the library regularly. So here's the passive voice. The library was visited by Gina regularly. Okay, so now you know what you've got to do. Here's the next one. My family always eats turkey for Christmas dinner. Okay, if you've not done it, press pause quickly because I'm going to show you the answer. Turkey is always eaten by my family for Christmas dinner. So remember the family, the subject now comes after by. The lazy girl ignored her alarm clock. To change that to passive, the alarm clock was ignored by the lazy girl. Okay, and then finally, this is a quick fire round. I am going to give you a sentence and I want you to be able to tell me if it is an active or a passive sentence. So here's the first one. Eating well and exercising regularly is good for you. Is that active or passive voice? It is active voice. If I click on it and it goes green, we've got it right. If it goes red, yeesh, I've got it wrong. Okay, next one. Everyone who knows him is aware of how rich he is. Active or passive? It is active voice. Ben gave me a spoon. Active or passive? Another active one. Most buses are driven by men. Active or passive? This one is a passive voice. He finds silly things amusing. Active or passive? Active. The jungle is inhabited by many strange and wonderful animals. Active or passive? Passive voice this time. The jungle is inhabited. There's your verb. And who's inhabiting it? What's the subject? Well, it's the strange and wonderful animals. The teacher was respected by many in her class. Passive again, and we've got that by there. We can spot it. The tsunami knocked many trees and buildings over. This time we're in an active sentence. All of her pies had been eaten by that naughty boy. Now we're in passive again. Okay, so remember we put the emphasis on the pies and who did the eating? Well, we've made that at the end of our sentence there. Right, that's the end of our lesson today. I hope you have learnt a little bit more about active and passive voice and you know how to A, be able to recognise the subject, the verb and the object in every sentence. B, be able to tell me if a sentence is in active or passive voice. And C, be able to change between the two. And remember, the key there, keep that tense the same. It always must be in the same tense. Okay, so grade 7s, thank you for joining me for today's grammar lesson and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.